What is a seemingly mundane question you can ask somebody that will tell you a lot about their personality? My father-in-law went on a job interview about 10 years ago and absolutely nailed the interview. As he was being shown around the office, a high-level person in that company who normally wasn't there just happened to be there that day. After they were introduced, he asked my Phil what kind of animal he would be. My Phil said he panicked and picked bear. He's a bigger guy. And the other guy said something along the lines of, "That's a little too aggressive, maybe this isn't the job for you." So he didn't get the job, but I guess it worked out because he's got a pretty good job now, and if I was him I wouldn't want to work for someone who hires people based on what animal they think they would be. Same thought. If a company would kick you out for everything good but one minor choice, I don't think working there will be happy. Good boss know the strength and weakness of the colleagues. One failure do not necessarily mean bad. Edit. Sorry, I didn't mean fail. English is not my native tongue. I meant some like an answer that is not what the boss want. The guy should have asked the follow-up question, why did you choose the bear? Cause a bear is not always associated with an aggressive animal, but can also be associated with a tough-looking guy who really loves cuddles and is a sweetheart. The explanation says more about a person than a one-worded answer. This actually applies to a lot of answers. Yes, this is a brilliant question. When I was newly dating my ex-boyfriend, it was around the time Super Lotto hit $1 billion a couple years ago. We were both in lottery ticket pools and discussed what we'd do if we won. His answer mortified me. It included how, if he were married, he'd divorce his wife and travel the world on a yacht doing drugs surrounded by hot women. Big red flag for me. I always say that I'd turn into an absolutely abhorrent degenerate if I were to suddenly get a cash prize like that. But in reality I just say that because I get a laugh out of people's reactions from that. I don't even know what I'd do. Probably just quit working, find a music teacher and play bass and video games all day long. Same here. My first thought about winning the lottery is, how do you go about finding a reliable financial advisor when you've just won the lottery and everybody is suddenly offering financial advice to you? One I saw on a dating site of all places, I forgot the name of it, was, do you think the concept consequences of a post-apocalyptic world is, in some ways, interesting? And it really resonated with me. It shows whether a person is interested in abstract thinking and imagining. Most people on the site voted no. I even had a conversation with someone who was like, no? Why would you want the world to end? I don't, but the idea of how it would be like, how the world ended, what society looks like afterwards, is interesting. I probably don't match up well with anyone who would vote no to that question. My 14-year-old asked for a longboard last spring. I'd said no before because I figured it'd be something I spend a few $100 on that she'd try once, not be good at right away, and never touch it again. It wouldn't be the first time. After being locked up for 2 months with quarantine, I figured, why not? It gets her outside and maybe something she'll enjoy. At that point I just wanted to get her out of her room and off her phone. I'd never seen her work so hard at something she wasn't good at right away. After 2 back-to-back 6-hour days of practice, she started to get the hang of it and asked me if I wanted to try. I couldn't even stand on a board when I was a kid, but as an adult I just got it. I wasn't on it 5 minutes and I said, I need one. We left right then and picked one up for myself. We cruised all spring, summer, and fall. Not only was it great for bonding, I hadn't felt that kind of joy since I was little. A moment I'll never forget. Can't wait for the snow to melt. Got this one in an interview once. How do you go about eating a muffin? Learned a lot about muffin anatomy that day. It was a bakery after all. Edit. The bottom is also called a stem BTW, just in case anyone needs some muffin trivia in their back pocket. Edit 2, also known as stumps. Yes. This was a highfalutin place, so they preferred to refer to them as stems. Just moved to a community with an hole and holy fucking shit, I want to carpet bomb the chairman's house. Classic douchebag rich hole chairman straight out of a 90s sitcom. We had to tear out concrete for a little basketball area on the south side of our house because, and I'm not kidding on this, he just didn't want to have concrete outside of his bedroom window view. He wrote the covenant rules so that he can veto and order any landscaping project on behest of the hole chairman. It's not a single question, but by the second or third date with a guy I would ask him to go bowling. As it turns out, there's many ways to play the game. Do they take it too seriously and get competitive or angry if they don't do well? Does he act disinterested or bored of the game? Do they try to teach me how to play, or do they just try to be goofy, have fun with it? Do they order 2 pitchers of beer and get totally smashed? In my opinion, you can learn a lot about a person by the way they approach bowling. My husband used to work for Bed Bath & blah blah. He told me part of his job was to put carts away. He said that was his favorite part about the job, wasting time walking around the parking lot finding carts and putting them away. He got to be outside, chill by himself, not have to deal with other worse tasks, etc. Of course, this story only came up after I gave him some shit for not putting the cart back one time. This story was his elaborate rationale for not putting a cart back and to prove he was in fact a nice, normal, compassionate human. Normally, a fastidious cart returner, I started to leave my cart, thinking I was actually being nice and even more compassionate than ever before. I probably only did a 2-5x until I realized, he's just an asshole. Who has now made me into an even bigger asshole. I now get to think about how much we are both assholes in our own ways every time I return a cart. What's your favorite dinosaur? In my last year of college, I took a prehistoric history class and was loving it. I, a history major, commuted by light rail to school and would end up spending the hour or so on the train congregating with other history majors. One day, I asked this group, "What's your favorite dinosaur?" Most of the people gave answers like velociraptors, or that they hadn't really been interested in dinosaurs since they were kids, which was fair enough. But one guy said, "I don't believe in dinosaurs and that the Earth was 6,000 years old." This was a guy that was studying history, for the sake of teaching children history, and he was denying that most of the Earth's history didn't exist, despite learning otherwise in the classes he was specializing in. I lost a lot of respect for him that day, and now, having a favorite dinosaur is a barometer test of mine. Edit, thanks for the awards, but please don't feel the need to spend money like that for Reddit awards. Edit, thanks for the awards, but please don't feel the need to spend money like that for Reddit awards. My favorite is the Archaeopteryx, but I usually tell people that I like the Brontosaurus since its name means thunder thighs. Edit 2, yes, dinosaurs are technically prehistory. I did not use history correctly in the academic sense. I appreciate you all for pointing it out since it was a teachable moment, but I would love it even more if you could also include your favorite dinosaur with your comment pointing that out. D. I saw this coming. Just recently learned that not believing in dinosaurs is an actual conspiracy theory that is commonly held. It reminds me of the first time I heard in the flat earth theory. I was in training on a job at a tech firm. In our orientation, we have to tell someone about something exciting we did. I go with a generic skydiving story. And he busts out, "Did you see the curve?" I was kind of dumbfounded, cause the Earth is gigantic, and I said no. The next 10 minutes were him explaining how the Earth was flat. I couldn't believe it was a thing. Yet, for the next year I looked up everything I could find to try and validate how someone could believe it. Nope, just skepticism without serious critical thinking. He only lasted about 6 months in the job before he was gone. In a job interview, ask your prospective supervisor how much vacation time and sick days they took last year. This is great because both extremes take pride in their answer and so will answer honestly. The no-low vacation boss is proud of how hard she or he works, but really it's bad if they don't take time off. They're coming in when they're sick, they're not recharging by taking vacation, and the expectation, even if unstated, is that their staff should follow that example. You'll feel guilty every time you call in sick or take vacation time. You want the boss who says, "I always take my vacation time and encourage my staff to as well." I called in a couple times last year when I came down with a cold. Good boss. Sweetheart, that really sucks. Take it from them old grandma, but reassure yourself, it's them, not you. Sounds like you need to go out, once we're free from the plague, and build your own family of choice. Be kind. Be adventurous. Go to healthy places like parks and museums, or wherever nice people who may share some interesting interests hang out and find partner potential. Your someone's out there, just as adrift as you. Looking back over my long life, this is something I regret not doing more of. Their favorite color, in so many ways if they tell you without hesitating, It means they must have probably thought about it before, and it must be a color they really like, that makes them feel at the home or makes them happy. Whenever I meet someone and they tell me their favorite color, it becomes a part of them to me. When I was a manager in retail, I used to ask the question, what was the last thing you've ever stolen, during interviews. I was asked it during a previous interview for a job, and I asked my manager why she asked it. It's a good way to tell if someone is capable of being honest and accountable in a situation that may not have favorable results, that is screwing up the interview. I noticed that most of my associates that answered the question honestly would usually own up to mistakes made on the job and wouldn't try to lie their way out of problems or throw others under the bus. Edit. To add a few clarifications for some of the comments I saw. It was never poised to be a gotcha question. I'd only ever use someone's response against them a couple times. One in particular admitted to stealing clothes from the previous store they worked at and would forget to pay for them. It was a question that was derived from our manager interview questions sheet we filled out when interviewing candidates. The original question was, have you ever stolen anything? And we were allowed to modify wording of the questions as long as they were in reason. It's not a question that was only asked of certain candidates. If you interviewed at our store, you were asked the question, doesn't matter who you were or what position it was for. Being asked if you've ever stolen is a very common question asked during interviews where you are dealing with money, or in retail of some sort. A lot of companies have to deal with internal theft as well as external. Internal equals employee theft, external equals customer theft, and it's generally asked to make sure someone won't be a risk for internal theft. I would use the question as a way to gauge if I could believe someone to be honest if a mistake occurred and having a sense of accountability. If someone replied they never stolen or couldn't remember, I would use how confident they were in their response. It was very easy to tell if someone was sincere or not. It's not meant to be an offensive question. When interviewing a candidate, I need to get to know you. No one looks like they steal, much like no one looks like they commit any crime. I literally have no idea if you steal or not. It was a question asked of every single person interviewing for our company among a million other questions. I would usually follow up with my personal answer that stole a CD from Walmart when I was 16. I wanted to make sure the candidate knew it was okay to answer that question. Background checks usually weren't run until the very end of the hiring process. We would conduct 2 separate manager interviews, and if we agreed we wanted to hire a candidate, we would reach out to HR to run all of that stuff before making the offer. We would generally never see the results of a background check as that was an hour thing. So we would have no idea if you were arrested for theft or anything like that when we conducted our manager interviews. And yes, I am aware that some companies do use this as something against you, which I personally think is dumb, but with the few retail companies I worked for, it never was unless you gave a really incriminating answer. My experience is completely anecdotal to others. I've shared this before, but I feel it's pretty relevant and a great way to find out more about a person. Years ago I went out on a first date with this girl I met online. I thought she was very attractive and we had so much common that I thought she was perfect. In addition to that, we seemed to hit off well through texts, so I figured this date would go well. We're at this bar and she suggests we play a people watching game where we try to make up backstories for the other people there. I thought it sounded fun, especially since I played a similar game with friends on the train sometimes. Plus it felt like a good icebreaker to get us talking. Well, she managed to take all the fun out the game by being ridiculously cruel in all her assumptions for no real reason at all. It felt like she was projecting issues she had onto these people. Like one guy was sitting at the bar alone, could have been waiting for someone, you never know, but because he was alone he was a fucking loser with no friends that hates his life? I tried to steer the game back to a more lighthearted mood, but she was set on being mean. Completely killed the mood, and after that I lost all interest in her. I just couldn't see myself going on a second date with someone like that, even if she checked all other boxes. However, I did learn that it's a dumb and usually fun game you can use that will really tell you a lot about a person and how well you get along with them. It still haunts me. My grandfather has always been in my corner even when no one else was, rightfully so. I'm currently racing to become a PA before he passes on so that he sees his faith in me was not misplaced 30 months until I'm there. I wake up crying from nightmares over this sometimes. People have been asking me about the details of the nightmares. I have a recurring nightmare where I'm descending into the atmosphere of Jupiter or some other gas giant. It's terrifying because at first you think it's amazing and then I get the sensation that I'm slowly being crushed under my own weight as I fall deeper and deeper. The storms and other weird images become darker and more terrifying until I wake up, sometimes screaming. It took me a while, but I finally got the meaning of it as an allegory of substance abuse from which there is no escape. Do you ever give money to homeless people you pass on the street? In my experience, there is a vast array of responses to this question, and I think it can tell you a lot about their attitudes towards strangers and the extent that they generally give people the benefit of the doubt or generally expect that others don't have good intentions. I don't mean the yes or no answers, but the more detailed answers can provide a bit of insight. So for example, I asked somebody this one and their response was "fuck no, I'm not funding their drug habit," and after that I began noticing that they also tended to comment derogatorily on strangers' outfits, weights, appearances, etc. An opposite example is someone that said "if I have it I do, I feel bad when I don't," and I've never heard this person make anywhere near the comments the other person had. It could be coincidence, but I think not. If you could have 2 superpowers, what would they be? This gave you a glimpse into someone's thought process. Based on their answers, you can sometimes tell what kind of thinker they are, if they're slow to trust, how creative they are, and what type of spirit they possess. I'm a teacher and typically ask this question to whatever grade I teach. It's amazing how from grade 1-12, I have never come across a class that didn't enjoy answering this question. But one thing always stand out and typically find these results the most accurate. The ones who choose invisibility are typically slow to trust, shy. Telepathy is usually the same way. Super strength are typically the more bold. Flight and magic are more of the ones who are distracted easily. Telekinesis and super speed are the more logic-based thinkers. Shapeshifters are the visual learners. And the ones that typically are the students that tend to excel are the ones who try and pair 2 powers together to make a better one. It's the best start to every school year that I look forward to. Do you believe dinosaurs are real? I once knew a guy that I liked, that I really liked, listened to a lot of the same music, would watch TV shows and movies and discuss our theories behind them, just had so much fun together, thought things could get serious. We were at a museum looking at some dinosaur bones. No casks of bones. He goes, "Good thing these things aren't real though." Can you imagine? Anne laughed. I thought he was talking about the Jurassic Park scenario and laughed. The conversation kept going and it became evident that he thought dinosaurs weren't real, ever. I pointed at the bones and told him that those were real bones that someone dug up and carbon dated. Apparently they're a trick, placed by the devil to shake our faith in God's perfect creation that is mankind. I have never just completely lost interest in someone so fast any time before or after. I love this question. I have a moth on my forearm, symbolic of a folklore tale I heard a long while back. According to the story, moths used to be as colorful as the butterflies, but when they saw how ugly and gray the world was, they decided to do something about it. They asked the butterflies to help, with the idea that each would give up some of their colors to make the world a better place. The butterflies were equally vain as they were beautiful and said, "Fuck off, we're not sharing our colors." So the moths, undeterred, gave up all their colors in an act of selflessness and generosity. And that's why the grass is green, the sky is blue. The story helps guide my decision-making and is why I went into the healthcare field. When I interview people, I always ask them what their favorite type of crisps, chips to you across the water, are. It's a throwaway question that's just designed to help them relax a little, but over the years I've noticed that people who give me a very classic brand flavor are very steady workers. Those that tell me they like a newer brand flavor have been generally less reliable and prone to distraction. Edit. Jesus Christ, this got a lot of weird hate. To attempt to answer a few things that I've seen pop up a lot. Yes, I know this isn't a thing. Obviously it's not a hard and fast rule. It's just an observation I've made over the years. It's literally an icebreaker question I use to help put people at ease if they're nervous. I don't use it to make hiring decisions because I know it's not a practical or useful way to hire. I'm an executive chef for a pub company in the UK. I've been in kitchens for 17 years and I'd hazard a guess that the sample size is around 600 people. I'd hate to be interviewed by you. You're a dick, arsehole, prick, cockwimble, wank, pheasant, etc. Cool, I'm not interviewing you. Can you calm down now? You're racist. Potentially, I'm a white Malay. I understand enough about the world to know that I may have racial bias, but I know enough about myself to know I wouldn't pick someone based on race or ethnicity. My kitchens, like most, are full of people from all over the world and they're picked for their skill sets and experience over anything. I literally want the best people for the job, that way my kitchens run smoothly and efficiently. You're biased. If I am, then it's subconsciously. I would have to be presented with two absolutely identical candidates with the only difference being Chris' preference to have it form part of a conscious decision. I eat generic brand and flavor. What does that make me? I literally don't know or care. I'm sure you're a wonderful person unless you eat salt and vinegar Pringles, in which case, you have a lot of hate in your heart. How's your day going? How are you today? I'm surprised no one has said this. As a hiring interviewing manager, I always start with this after introducing myself. Sometimes I still have to lead them to a room or seat and I just ask this on our way and it really makes it feel like the interview hasn't started yet. It's just small talk, but that couldn't be any more wrong. I base a lot off their answer. I can see people's outlook on life with the one question. I've had people start off by complaining about something small that happened earlier in their day, or they tell me everything is well. There's endless possibilities to answer this question with, and they all give you a glimpse into how they think, who they are, and how they would be as a part of the team. My favorite question as an interviewer was, tell me about a time someone asked you to do something you didn't want to do, and how'd you handle it? So many people told me way too much here. It showed me they couldn't keep a professional conversation with their clients. I'd hear what an asshole former bosses were. Drug use. Family drama, etc., etc. I was looking for more. My boss asked me to take out the trash. I didn't want to, but I took out the trash because I know it's important. Anytime I got there was this boy in high school responses, I stopped them there. There are literally many reasons not to pee in the shower. Most people saying no probably actually don't. If you get a spray tan, peeing in the shower ruins the tan. Or if you have a gray water system, you can't, or it contaminates the gray water and makes it black water. And some people just don't like the feeling of peeing standing up and having it run down both their legs. And to the first one, honestly kind of a silly question too, because there's plenty of other exotic media out there. The majority of women, for example, prefer reading erotica to watching porn. Plus, do you watch porn could mean regularly, or have you ever seen it, or just you watch it from time to time depending on how they interpret it, which could have wildly different answers from the same person. For example, if you ask, do you watch scary movies, I'd probably say no because I don't really watch scary movies often, but that doesn't mean I won't watch any or I haven't watched any, just that it's not part of my normal repertoire of things to watch when I'm looking for something to watch, and probably won't actively seek one out on my own. Asking someone to describe their parents is enormously revealing. First, whether they can tell you a great deal about their levels of insight and perceptiveness. Secondly, what they say about a parent can be very revealing about them. Personality forms in the context of identifying with or rejecting the example parents offer. Getting someone to reflect on this can reveal some of the fundamental underlying characteristics of their personality. Asking about parents was the first material question I would ask in an interview. With prompting, the answers were sometimes rich enough to make the rest of the interview purely confirmatory. Source: I am a psychologist specialized in selection assessment.